Look at you, she scoffed, arms crossed, hips cocked, venom in her eyes. Still clinging to your pathetic little dream, like it's ever going to matter. God, Ethan, grow up. I didn't say a word. I stood there, suitcase half zipped, the quiet hum of the overhead fan the only sound filling the tension-drenched room. Vanessa, my wife, or the woman who used to be my wife in spirit if not on paper, paced like a cornered animal in our bedroom, her rage simmering just beneath her flawless skin. 10 years of marriage, she said, more to herself than to me. 10 years of sacrifices, support, and this is what I get. You quitting your stable job to chase some pipe dream about sustainable, whatever the hell it is. You can't even afford to take me out to dinner, Ethan. I still didn't say anything. I was afraid if I opened my mouth, I'd break. And I didn't want to break in front of her. The thing is, she wasn't entirely wrong. I had quit my corporate job 2 years ago to pursue a tech startup focused on sustainable energy. Solar heat capture. The potential was there. Hell, the science was solid, but the money wasn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. In those 2 years, our savings dried up. Vacations vanished. Sex evaporated. She stopped wearing the perfume I loved. I stopped asking her how her day was. And slowly, the house grew cold in places I didn't know could freeze. But tonight was different. Final. Take your shit and get out, she snapped, folding her arms tight under her chest, her once affectionate gaze now replaced with something sharper. Go be the poor man's Elon Musk somewhere else. I want my life back. I swallowed hard, zipped up the suitcase, and turned to look at her. She was beautiful, still was. That had never changed. Even in this moment, even with the hatred in her eyes and contempt on her lips, she looked like the woman I'd fallen for. But not the woman I loved. Not anymore. The memory of her laughing in the kitchen in a summer dress, barefoot and humming to herself while she chopped garlic, flashed through my mind. I missed that Vanessa. This one, she was something else entirely. Say something, she hissed. So I did. Okay. She blinked. That's it. Okay. I nodded. You want me to leave? I will. I've been gone a long time anyway. Just didn't realize it until now. Her face twisted, offended at how calmly I received her cruelty. I don't think she wanted heartbreak. She wanted drama. She wanted to hurt me and watch me bleed, not watch me quietly vanish. You always were a coward, she spat. That one stung more than it should have, because there was truth to it. I had stayed too long, swallowed too much, and let her opinion shape me into a ghost of myself. I should have walked away a year ago, maybe even 2, but I kept believing I could win her back. That if I just got one investor, one big break, one news article, she'd see me again. But now I saw her, clearly, and she didn't see me at all. Where will you go? She asked, suddenly curious. Does it matter? She shrugged. Not to me. I zipped up the second bag, the heavier one, the one with my old hard drives and notebooks. It made a dull thud when I placed it near the door. You'll be back, she said. You always come crawling back. I finally looked her in the eyes. Not this time. That seemed to unsettle her. She shifted her weight, folded her arms tighter. Her robe slipped slightly, revealing her collarbone. It used to drive me wild. Now, it just felt like a hollow tease. You're nothing without me, Ethan. I was nothing with you. Silence. She flinched. I hadn't meant to say it, but it came out, bare and raw. And it was true. I walked past her, the faint scent of her skin still familiar, still intoxicating in that dangerous, nostalgic way that made you forget the poison laced beneath it. At the door, I paused. One last glance around the apartment we once called our future. It was cold now. Stylish. Clean. But lifeless. Like a model unit in a magazine spread. No warmth. No laughter. Just quiet resentment echoing in every corner. I'll send for the rest, I said softly. Don't bother, she replied. I'll burn it. I gave her a small, sad smile. Maybe that's what it needs. As I stepped out into the hallway, suitcase wheels humming against the floor, a weight lifted from my chest. Not a joyful lift. Not yet. But the kind that comes from cutting off a limb that's gone gangrenous. Outside, the city moaned like it always did. Late-night car horns, a stray bark, someone yelling down the block. I didn't know where I was going. My car was parked 3 blocks away. I had $173 in my checking account and maybe $20 in my wallet. No job. No home. No plan. But for the first time in years, I had air in my lungs. And maybe that was enough. 3 nights. That's how long I lived out of my car before I admitted to myself that things were far worse than I'd let on. The first night wasn't so bad. I parked behind an old warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. The security lights were busted, and no one came around to bother me. I reclined the seat as far back as it would go, wrapped a hoodie around my head, and tried to sleep. Didn't happen. The quiet was too loud. My mind wouldn't shut up. I kept replaying Vanessa's words. "You're nothing without me." Like a curse. By the third night, I stank like shame and stale sweat, and the ache in my back had turned into a full-on knot under my shoulder blade. My savings? Gone. My credit card? Declined at a goddamn gas station. I'd gone from husband and hopeful entrepreneur to a guy brushing his teeth in a gas station sink and wiping his pits with baby wipes from the dollar store. No friends to crash with. The ones I had were mostly hers, and the rest had drifted off when I traded my steady paycheck for the unstable dream of changing the world through green tech. Hell, even my parents had stopped calling 6 months ago. I told them I was fine, that the startup was in pre-seed, that I was close to landing a partner. It was bullshit. All of it. The kind of optimistic fiction a man builds to keep his pride from caving in. I scraped together money doing whatever I could find, moving boxes for a storage facility, unloading crates at dawn behind a fish market, handing out flyers on street corners. Anything for cash. Every day was a reminder of how far I'd fallen. I still had my prototype stored in a storage unit across town, 6 months overdue on rent. If I didn't come up with the payment by the end of the week, they'd auction off everything. The solar condenser core I spent 2 years designing. My notes. My schematics. The custom rig I built with a soldering iron, epoxy, and a prayer. Gone. The fourth day, I hit my breaking point. I was sitting on the curb outside a hardware store, trying to scarf down a microwave burrito that was still frozen in the middle. A guy stepped out of the store in a suit. Gray, sharp, expensive. Probably mid-40s. He looked like every guy who'd ever laughed at me in a boardroom. He saw me, saw my burrito, saw the look on my face, and then he dropped a $10 bill in front of me. "I've been there," he said with the tone of someone who hadn't. I wanted to throw the money back at him, but I didn't. I just stared at it as it fluttered in the wind like a dead leaf. That was the moment. I stood up, walked 2 blocks down to a coffee shop, bought the cheapest thing on the menu, a hot water with lemon, and sat down to use their free Wi-Fi. I pulled out my laptop. It was cracked near the hinge, and the battery only held a charge for 20 minutes. But it still worked. I opened my pitch deck, version 17.2, and stared at the first slide. Ethan Hart Solvis Energy. Beneath it, in bold, italicized font, redefining the way we capture and store solar thermal power. I laughed. It was a good idea. Still is. A portable solar heat condenser for off-grid and emergency use. Affordable. Compact. Useful in disaster zones, remote camps, even underdeveloped communities. I'd even built a working prototype. The problem? No one gave a shit. I'd pitched it to VCs who sipped espresso while checking their watches. They wanted apps. Subscriptions. Not hardware. Not climate tech. Not anything that took time or didn't promise exponential return in 18 months. But as I stared at the screen, something in me hardened. I wasn't going to let the last 2 years die on a hard drive in a pawned-off storage unit. So I made a plan. First, I printed new 1-page summaries of the business concept and walked them into every building in the industrial corridor, anywhere with a decent roof or a south-facing loading dock. I pitched it to foremen, assistant managers, electricians, janitors, anyone who would listen. I offered free demonstrations. I begged for feedback. It was humiliating, but it was real. And then one day, day 10, I think, I met a man named Carter Weiss. I was at a fabrication yard asking if I could borrow a few minutes of rooftop access for a test. He was in work boots and a button-up, mid-50s, with soot on his hands and a glint in his eye that reminded me of someone who still gave a damn. "You built this thing yourself?" he asked after I explained the condenser to him. "Every piece." "And it works?" I pulled out my prototype and showed him how it could generate stable thermal energy even in partial sun. I didn't get halfway through my explanation before he raised a hand to stop me. "You ever pitch this to anyone who knows what they're looking at?" he asked. "Not really. Most of them just want to hear about scalability and user growth." He nodded, almost amused. "You're the wrong kind of smart for those people." That night, he took me to dinner. A steakhouse. First real meal in 2 weeks. Turned out Carter was more than a fabrication yard manager. He was a retired engineer and angel investor. Made his money consulting for defense contractors and renewable startups. Now he funded real things that actually did real shit, as he put it. Over medium-rare ribeye and too many whiskeys, he offered me a lifeline. I don't need some ridiculous steak, he said. You give me 10%. I give you a shot. Materials, access, a little space to work. You prove it can be done at scale, I'll bring in someone who can talk to the money guys for you. I sat there, blinking. Was this real? He looked at me with those blue-collar eyes and said, You've already been kicked to hell. Might as well climb out swinging. I shook his hand right there. Not because I trusted him, but because I trusted myself. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, that was enough. 5 years. That's how long it took to turn blood and hunger into something the world couldn't ignore. It started in a rented workspace the size of a shipping container, 2 doors down from a butcher who always reeked of brine and bleach. Carter pulled some strings, secured me a makeshift lab, and helped source secondhand equipment. I slept on a cot next to the condenser prototypes and lived off coffee, instant noodles, and the occasional sandwich Carter would bring in like a reluctant father checking on his adult son who refused to move out. But I was building something. The first break came with the disaster in El Paso. A freak ice storm knocked out power for hundreds of thousands. Carter called me at 3 a.m. Pack your shit. We're going south. We loaded the back of his beat-up truck with 6 of my portable thermal units. Janky looking, but fully functional. In 2 days, we had a small relief station up and running on the south side of the city, providing heat and boiled water to over 40 families. CNN picked it up. They called the system the Miracle Boxes. Overnight, my inbox exploded. Requests from NGOs, disaster coordinators, even a military liaison wanting specs. And suddenly, all the people who hadn't returned my calls were sending me emails with smiley faces and circle-back energy. Carter grunted when he saw it. Told you, nobody gives a damn about your idea until it makes someone else money or headlines. We named the company Solvis Energy. I didn't take a paycheck for the first 18 months. Every cent went back into development and production. Carter and I brought on 2 engineers, Nina and Dev, both geniuses in ways I'll never fully understand. They saw things in code and circuit design like I saw symmetry in a sunrise. The 4 of us worked like wolves, sometimes sleeping in the office, sometimes not sleeping at all. Orders came in faster than we could fill them. FEMA, UNICEF, off-grid commercial clients. The numbers didn't make me rich, at least, not yet, but they gave me something far more valuable. Credibility. And then came the second break. An article in Wired, The Man Building Light in the Dark, how Ethan Hart's Solvis boxes are revolutionizing emergency power. They called me the anti-tech guy. A builder. A romantic. Someone who gave a damn. I didn't correct them. The interview circled the globe. Within 2 weeks, a VC group from Stockholm offered to buy 40% of Solvis for a figure that made my knees buckle. I didn't take it. I wasn't building something to sell. I was building something to last. The money came eventually. Carter was right. Once people saw it worked, they fell over themselves to be part of it. By year 3, I had a downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows, a 15-person team, and a corporate card that paid for flights in first class, though I still flew coach unless someone insisted. I avoided press. No panels. No conferences. No TED Talks with wireless mics and polished lines. I didn't care about fame, but some attention came anyway. And with it, came Emily. She emailed me after reading the Wired article. Subject line: Ethan, is this really you? At first, I didn't recognize the name. Emily Ryland. But when I opened the message and saw her photo in the signature, it hit me like a whisper from a life I'd buried. Vanessa's best friend. Her maid of honor. The one who'd always been a little too nice to me, who lingered a little too long during hugs, who once admitted, drunkenly at our engagement party, that if things had been different, she would have said yes to me first. Back then, I laughed it off. Now, reading her message, I felt something stir in my chest. We hadn't spoken since Vanessa and I split. I figured she took her side, like everyone else. But she hadn't. She explained in the message that they'd stopped talking months before our divorce. Vanessa changed, she wrote. Or maybe she was always that way, and I just never saw it. She said she followed Solvis from the start. That she knew it was me. Had to be me, but waited until I looked untouchable before reaching out. I replied that night. We talked for 2 hours over video. She looked older, sharper, more grounded. Gone were the glittery club dresses and filtered selfies. She wore a gray sweater, no makeup, hair up, and I don't think she'd ever looked more beautiful. We met a week later. She flew out to San Francisco under the guise of a work thing, though we both knew it was bullshit. Dinner turned into drinks. Drinks turned into laughter. Laughter into silence. And silence into that electric moment where neither of you knows who's going to lean in first. She did. Her lips were warm, hesitant, and hungry all at once. And when I kissed her back, something inside me clicked. This was different. This was real. In the months that followed, Emily became a fixture in my life. She never asked for money, never treated me like a trophy. She still worked her corporate job, senior consultant for a firm that bored her to tears but paid too well to walk away from. She loved the mission of Solvis. She believed in what we were doing. And more than that, she believed in me. There were nights, after long hours at the office, where we'd sit on the floor of my apartment drinking wine, our backs against the couch, her head resting on my shoulder. "I always knew you'd be something," she whispered once, tracing circles on my hand. Even when she didn't. Vanessa. I hadn't thought of her in a long time. Not in that way, at least. But hearing her name again, it didn't bring pain. It didn't bring hate. Just quiet. Just distance. And maybe that was the best revenge of all. The first time Vanessa's name came up again, we were sitting on the balcony of my apartment, sharing a late bottle of Malbec and watching the fog roll in across the bay. Emily was barefoot, legs tucked under her, her wine glass resting on the stone railing. She wore one of my shirts, oversized and soft from too many washes. The city lights painted her silhouette gold. She looked over at me with that sly little smile, the one that always meant she was about to stir the pot. "So," she said, drawing the word out, "I heard something about your ex." I didn't answer immediately. The air around us felt heavier, like the words carried weight before they even landed. She continued, "Kara, remember her? She used to hang out with us back in the day. Well, she ran into Vanessa at a networking event in L.A. I just nodded, letting her speak. Emily never gossiped without a purpose. She looked rough, Emily said. Said she barely recognized her. Gained some weight. Not that it matters. But, more than that, there was this vibe like she was barely holding it together. You know what Kara said? That Vanessa cornered her near the bathroom and started asking if she'd heard about you. That got my attention. Me? I asked. Emily nodded. Apparently, your name came up out of nowhere. Kara didn't even know we were seeing each other, but Vanessa was rambling about how she made a mistake. Kept saying she thought you'd fail, that no one would ever take you seriously. I gave a small laugh, quiet, bitter. Sounds about right. And now, Emily added, sipping her wine, she's watching you on magazine covers, on investor panels, on charity boards. You're the one they all want to talk to. And she's not. That should have felt like victory. But it didn't. It just felt distant. Like hearing about a storm that missed your town but wrecked someone else's. I leaned back, eyes on the skyline. She always said the world owed her more. Even when we were barely paying rent, she dropped $300 on skin cream and then complained that I didn't take her out enough. Emily turned to face me, her tone softer now. Did you love her? The question wasn't loaded. Just honest. I did, I said. But I think I loved the idea of her more than the reality. She was beautiful. She knew how to light up a room. And when she smiled at me, it felt like the whole world paused. Emily nodded quietly, watching me. But over time, I continued. The smile stopped being about us. Everything became about her. Her career, her image, her needs. I stopped being a partner and became a prop. Sounds familiar, she muttered. I raised an eyebrow. Emily hesitated, then shrugged. Vanessa was always like that. Even back then. She collected people. Used them like accessories. You were the loyal one. I was the sidekick. And when she moved on, she didn't look back. I reached over, took her hand in mine. You ever feel used? She smiled. No. I felt invisible. That hit deeper than I expected. I saw you, I said. She turned to me. Not at first. We both laughed softly. It wasn't cruel laughter, just two people acknowledging how much had changed, how blind we'd been, how long it took to arrive at something real. I used to wonder, she said after a long pause. What would have happened if I'd told you how I felt sooner? Back when you still lived in that shoebox apartment with the IKEA couch that sank in the middle. I smirked. Hey, that couch was a classic. More like a black hole for asses. I laughed, genuinely this time, and she joined me. But then the mood settled again, quiet and thoughtful. I don't regret waiting, she said. I wouldn't trade this for anything. Not even if it meant having you sooner. I leaned over and kissed her forehead. There was no urgency in it. No lust. Just warmth. Safe. Grounded. We stayed out there until the chill crept in. She curled into me like she belonged there, which she did, and I held her, watching the city pulse with distant life. Later that week, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a worn leather journal. My old one. The one I thought I'd lost in the move out of Vanessa's place. It was filled with the earliest sketches of the condenser, business notes, goals, and a few desperate poems I'd written during the divorce. Pages smudged with old coffee and faded anger. There was a note tucked inside. Found this in a box. Figured it meant more to you than it does to me. I didn't read it. Probably wouldn't understand it if I did. V. I stared at that letter for a long time. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was something. I didn't reply. Instead, I placed the journal on my desk next to a framed photo of Emily and me in Kyoto, laughing in the rain under a red umbrella, and then I got back to work. Because life wasn't in the past anymore. It was happening now, and this time, I wasn't chasing it. I was building it. There was something poetic about pulling into my old hometown in a car that used to live on my vision board. A midnight blue Aston Martin Vantage, sleek, purring low as it rolled past the same strip mall where I used to wait tables in college. The sun glinted off the hood like it recognized the irony. 10 years ago, I couldn't afford the gas for a car like this. Now, I didn't even think about the price. Beside me, Emily adjusted her sunglasses and smiled. You're nervous, she said. No, I'm not, I lied. She raised a brow. You keep tapping the steering wheel like it insulted your mother. I looked down. Damn, she was right. My fingers were dancing across the leather like they had a mind of their own. I'm not nervous, I repeated. Just curious. Emily leaned over and kissed my cheek, then whispered, Well, Mr. Billionaire in hiding, this is your moment. Go make your ex hate herself. I gave her a look. What? I didn't say it out loud, she smirked. The gala was being held at the restored County Museum, a posh venue that used to be a post office. They'd converted it into a glass-and-stone monument to local excellence, whatever that meant. It was a charity event, technically, but in truth, it was a chance for the town's elite to show off their tax write-offs in tailored suits. I wasn't here for the praise or the press. I was here because Carter, my old investor, now chairman of the Salvis Foundation, insisted we make a public appearance. Symbolism, he'd said. Nothing hits like a comeback story, but it's only a story if people see it. So here I was. And, God help me, I wanted her to see. I stepped out of the car first, the valet blinking like he couldn't believe what he was touching. Emily stepped out next, long legs, black satin dress, and just enough diamonds to imply wealth, without screaming, look at me. She took my arm as the cameras clicked. We didn't stop to pose. We just walked. I saw the heads turn, felt the hush ripple through the crowd as we stepped inside. The whispers started almost immediately. Is that Ethan Hart? No way. Didn't he used to be married too? And then I saw her. Vanessa. She was near the open bar, holding a champagne flute and wearing a pale green gown that clung like she wanted to be seen. Her hair was curled and pinned, her lipstick sharp red. For a moment, she looked exactly as I remembered her, beautiful, magnetic, unapproachable. But then she saw me, and her face fell. Not dramatically, just enough. Just a stutter in her smile, a half step back, a flicker of disbelief. Her eyes locked onto Emily's hand on my arm. Her gaze dropped to the matching bracelets we wore, Salvis Foundation signature pieces, subtle but symbolic. And then she looked at me. I gave her a polite nod. No wave, no smile, just acknowledgement. Emily leaned in, her voice low. I think she just swallowed her tongue. We made our way to our table. Front and center. Name cards prearranged. The organizers had gone all out for us. Guests of honor, they called it. Everyone wanted a quote, a photo, a donation pledge. I shook hands. I smiled. I did the dance. But the only thing I kept seeing was Vanessa, still standing at the bar, staring like the world had flipped upside down. Halfway through the evening, during a speech about renewable aid programs, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned. Her. Hi, Ethan, Vanessa said. Her voice was soft, uncertain. I stood, letting the space between us stretch like tension in a wire. Vanessa, I said simply. She looked at Emily, then back at me. Wow. You look incredible. Thank you. And you, she paused. I've been following your company. Solvis. The work you're doing is important. I nodded. That's the idea. There was an awkward silence, the kind that chokes the air like smoke. Then she said, Can we talk? Just us? Emily stood, calm and poised. Actually, she said, I was just going to grab us some drinks. She gave Vanessa a look that was polite but steely, then walked away. Vanessa stepped closer. I didn't expect to see you here. You told me to disappear, I said, voice steady. I guess I listened. She winced. That was a long time ago, Ethan. I was angry, lost. And now? Her eyes glistened. Now I'm watching the man I let go become the man I always hoped you'd be. I didn't reply. She took a shaky breath. I made mistakes. So many. I thought I needed someone established, secure, not someone chasing dreams. I tilted my head. And now that the dream worked? She looked away. Vanessa, I said softly, I'm not here to hurt you. I don't hate you. But whatever you're hoping for, it's not here anymore. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Is she good to you? She asked, nodding toward Emily. She believed in me when I had nothing. She never asked me to be more than I was. She just stood beside me. Vanessa swallowed hard. I was stupid. No, I said. You just bet against the wrong man. At that moment, Emily returned, handing me a glass of wine and gently placing her hand in mine. Vanessa stepped back, her voice barely audible. You look happy. I am. She nodded, turned, and started to walk away. But then, halfway across the room, she stopped and fainted, right there in front of 100 people. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as someone caught her mid-fall. The band stopped playing. People surged forward. Emily and I stayed where we were. The spotlight didn't move, but the weight of it did. For once, I wasn't the one on the floor. She came to with a gasp, eyes wide and unfocused, mascara smudging beneath one eye where a tear had dared to escape. People crowded around her, murmuring, offering napkins, water, anything to bridge the chasm between grace and humiliation. I didn't move. Neither did Emily. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. Vanessa had once stood on a pedestal of her own design. Now, lying on the polished floor of a museum she used to boast about attending galas in, she looked small. Human. Not broken. No. Vanessa didn't break easily, but cracked in places no makeup could hide. Medics arrived within minutes. The organizers ushered the crowd away with the practiced urgency of people trained to manage optics. I caught the brief flicker of embarrassment cross her face as they helped her to a nearby bench. I thought that would be the end of it. But it never is it? 3 days later, her name appeared in my inbox. Subject, just talk? I stared at it for a long time. Emily passed behind me, towel drying her hair from a morning shower. She paused when she saw the screen. You going to open it? I shouldn't. She shrugged. Doesn't mean you won't. I sighed, clicked. Ethan, I'm sorry for how things ended. I don't expect anything from you. But I saw something the other night that I can't unsee. You. Confident. Calm. Everything I told myself you'd never be. I think I've been angry because I didn't believe in you. And now I have to live with the fact that I was wrong. I don't know what that means. But if you'd ever consider talking, even just for closure, I'd appreciate it. No guilt. No pleading. Just honest vulnerability. I leaned back in my chair, unsure what to feel. Emily walked over, sat beside me on the couch, her hand resting on my thigh. You're allowed to want answers, she said. Just don't mistake them for something deeper. You trust me? I asked. She smiled. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. So I replied. 1 coffee. That's it. The cafe was small, tucked into a quiet block downtown. Neutral ground. Public. Safe. I arrived early, out of habit, and took the corner booth. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. No gown. No heels. No armor. Vanessa wore jeans, a soft gray sweater, and her hair in a loose braid. She looked real. Maybe for the first time. She slid into the seat across from me, her fingers curled around a ceramic mug before she said anything. I thought you'd ignore my message, she said. I almost did. She nodded. Thank you for coming. Silence stretched between us like a tightrope. She finally broke it. Do you hate me? No, I said. Her eyes flicked to mine. Not even a little? I shrugged. I did. But hate takes energy, and I needed it for better things. She winced, but didn't disagree. I was awful to you, she said. Not just at the end. Way before that. I saw you slipping out of the version of you I married, and instead of growing with you, I blamed you for changing. I sipped my coffee, waiting. You were chasing something I couldn't see, and I thought that meant you were failing, that we were failing. You didn't just stop believing in me, Vanessa, I said, my voice level. You made sure I knew it. Every single day. She nodded, eyes shining. I know. Another pause. Then she said something I didn't expect. I see you now, and not just what you've built, not the success. I see you. And I think the hardest thing is knowing I gave up before you even had the chance to prove yourself. I keep thinking, what if I'd stayed? I leaned forward, elbows on the table. Then we both would have drowned. She looked surprised. You weren't ready to love someone who didn't need you to be impressed, I said. And I wasn't ready to let go of the idea that your love came with strings. She blinked, her lip trembling slightly. I thought I was strong. You were terrified. Tears slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe them away. I don't want you back, she said, almost in a whisper. I know that's not why you're here. I just needed you to know that I see it now. All of it. I nodded. Thank you for saying that. She smiled sadly. She's good for you. Emily. I always thought there was something there. She saw me when I was invisible, I said. Vanessa exhaled, a shaky breath that sounded like release. I hope one day someone sees me like that. They will, I said, standing. But only if you stop seeing yourself through everyone else's eyes. I placed a 20 on the table and turned to go. Ethan, I stopped. She looked up at me. You're everything I told myself I didn't need. And now you're everything I wish I believed in. I didn't answer. I just walked out. Outside, the sun was bright, the wind sharp with the bite of fall. I pulled out my phone, dialed the only number that mattered. She answered on the second ring. Hey you. It's done, I said. A beat of silence. Then, how do you feel? Lighter. Emily's voice smiled through the line. Then come home. And so I did. I didn't want to meet her again. But curiosity is a persistent little devil. Vanessa had left me a voicemail. Her voice was soft, careful, no trace of the biting sarcasm she once wore like perfume. Hey, Ethan, I know this is unexpected, but I wondered if you'd be open to catching up. Just coffee. No expectations. No drama. I promise. Emily and I had just finished dinner when I played the message on speaker. She didn't even flinch. Go, she said, sliding her wine glass toward me. You're too calm about her. That means something's still simmering. I'm calm because I'm done. Then prove it. So I did. We met at a quiet cafe near the park, the kind that tries too hard to look European with mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus. I wore a dark gray sweater and jeans. Clean. Simple. Understated. Vanessa arrived late, as usual. Her hair was straighter than I remembered, her makeup softer. She wore a white blouse and navy skirt, more reserved than anything she used to wear when we were married. Thanks for coming, she said, sliding into the chair across from me. You look good. You too, I replied. She smiled at that, like it mattered. The server brought coffee, and for a few seconds we just sipped in silence. Then she started. I know I've already said it, but I'm sorry, Ethan. For everything. The way I treated you. The things I said. I nodded, offering nothing more. She tilted her head. You're quiet. I don't have much to say. Her lips twitched. Not even a little satisfaction. Watching me squirm. I'm not here to watch you squirm. I'm here because I want to know why you really asked me here. That stopped her. For a second, she looked like she might deny it. Then her expression softened. I miss the way you used to look at me, she said. Like I mattered more than the rest of the world. You did, I said. Until you made sure I didn't. She looked down at her cup. You were right, she said. We would have drowned. I was selfish. But part of me always hoped we'd find our way back. There is no back. She nodded slowly, and for the first time I saw it, resentment flickering behind her eyes. Faint, but there. You and Emily, she said, voice light. Is that serious? It is. She always had a thing for you, you know. Even back when we were still married. I didn't respond. I used to catch her watching you when she thought no one noticed, she added, smiling. But it didn't reach her eyes. I guess she was just waiting her turn. I leaned forward, voice quiet but sharp. You don't get to rewrite the story. She didn't wait. She respected what we had. Something you stopped doing long before we ended. Vanessa froze. I saw her swallow hard, anger building behind the gloss of her expression. I lost everything after you left, she whispered. The condo, my job, friends. They all drifted away. And you became untouchable. Billionaire golden boy with a charity foundation and a perfect girlfriend. I said nothing. And yet you're still here, she continued. Still meeting me. That means something. I'm here because I don't like leaving things unfinished. She raised an eyebrow. So what's left? Closure. Vanessa stared at me for a moment, then sat back, crossing her legs. You know, for someone who says he's moved on, you're very interested in proving it. I chuckled. That's rich, coming from the woman who invited her ex to coffee and spent 20 minutes picking old wounds. Her cheeks flushed. I just wanted to see if you still felt anything. I don't. She blinked. I care that you're okay, I added. But not in the way you want. The check came. I reached for it, but she stopped me. No, she said. Let me. Vanessa. I insist. I let her. As we stood, she looked at me with a mix of sadness and something colder, resentment wrapped in regret. I hope she makes you happy, she said. She already does. Vanessa held my gaze for a long beat, then turned and walked out, heels clicking like punctuation on a sentence neither of us wanted to write. That night, Emily waited on the couch, a blanket wrapped around her legs and a book open in her lap. Well? She asked as I sat beside her. She wanted to see if she still had a hold on me, I said. And she doesn't. Emily set the book down, curled into my side, and whispered, Good, because I'm not playing second to a ghost. You never were, I murmured. But even as we sat there, the warmth of her against me, I knew Vanessa wasn't done. Something in her eyes during that last glance, that wasn't closure. That was a woman who realized she'd lost the game and might just start changing the rules. The ballroom pulsed with soft jazz and laughter, crystal chandeliers casting warm halos over polished smiles. The Salvis Foundation's annual benefit had doubled in size since last year. Bigger venue, higher stakes, and far more eyes watching my every move. Emily stood beside me, radiant in an emerald gown that clung like silk to fire. Her hand rested lightly on my arm, steady, grounding. She was my anchor in a sea of small talk and social maneuvering. We were mid-conversation with a board member from UNICEF when I saw her. Vanessa. I hadn't expected her here. Not because she didn't belong. She'd always known how to float in rooms like this. But because I assumed she wouldn't want to witness my life on full display. Yet there she was. Burgundy dress, hair pulled back tight, glass of champagne held with that same old elegance. But her eyes gave her away. They scanned the room like a predator stalking its prey. Emily caught my gaze. You okay? She's here. Emily didn't even need to ask who. You want to leave? She offered. No, I said, my tone even. Let her see. And see she did. She kept her distance at first, hovered near the silent auction, pretending to study a ceramic sculpture, then migrated to the dessert table, chatting up an investor I hadn't spoken to since our Series A round. But as the evening wound down and the speeches began, she made her move. I was halfway through my keynote, thanking donors, sharing progress from our latest deployment in northern India, when I noticed the shift in the room. A murmur swept through the crowd, subtle but undeniable. She was walking toward the stage. I paused mid-sentence, blinking as Vanessa stepped into the spotlight. Gasps fluttered across the ballroom like startled birds. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for an invitation. She took the microphone from the side podium and faced the room. Her voice trembled at first, but the words came fast. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but I need to say something. Not as part of the program, not as a guest, but as someone who once knew the man standing on this stage. The crowd stilled. Even the music cut. Emily stood now, arms folded, watching carefully. Vanessa continued. Years ago, I was married to Ethan Hart. I loved him once, or at least I thought I did. But when he started chasing his dream, I didn't believe in him. I mocked him. I told him he'd fail, that he wasn't enough. You could hear a pin drop. I was wrong, she said, voice cracking. So wrong. A tear slipped down her cheek. He didn't just prove me wrong. He became the man I wish I believed in. The man I should have stood beside instead of pushing away. She turned toward me now. Ethan, I am so sorry. For everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed the world to hear it from me, that I was the fool who let you go. I stood frozen. Not from shock. From disbelief that she'd make this public, that she'd weaponize her own guilt in front of donors, press, and colleagues. Make my story about her. I walked forward, slowly, calmly, and took the mic from her hand. She stepped back, eyes shining, like she'd just handed me something sacred. I faced the crowd. "Thank you, Vanessa," I said. "I appreciate your words. They take courage." She exhaled, hopeful. "But I need to say something too." I looked out at the room, at the faces who'd watched my climb and now bore witness to this. "I'm not the man Vanessa left," I said. "And she's not the woman I once loved." A quiet ripple spread through the crowd. "I don't say that with bitterness," I added. "I say it with honesty. We all grow. Sometimes together. Sometimes apart. I've built a life I'm proud of, with people who believed in me when I had nothing." I looked directly at Emily now, and I'm grateful every day for the ones who saw me clearly, even when I couldn't see myself. Vanessa's expression fell, her posture faltering as the weight of the moment settled on her. I turned back to the crowd, offered a small smile. "Now, let's get back to what we're here for, changing lives, not revisiting old chapters." Applause rose slowly, then built into a wave. But it wasn't thunderous. It was polite, controlled. No one wanted to gawk too hard. Vanessa backed away from the stage, her heels clicking softly as she returned to her seat near the edge of the room. I returned to Emily's side. She said nothing, just reached for my hand and squeezed it. Later that night, as guests began to leave and the city lights flickered beyond the terrace, I stepped outside for air. Vanessa stood alone near the edge, staring out over the skyline. She turned as I approached, her face a portrait of quiet defeat. "I thought if I said it out loud," she murmured, "if I humbled myself, maybe there'd be something left." "There isn't," I said gently. She nodded. "You really love her, don't you?" "With everything I am." She looked down, then whispered, "Then I hope she never stops." "She won't." I walked away. This time, I didn't look back. The envelope was cream-colored, unmarked, sealed with an old-fashioned wax stamp. Emily found it tucked beneath the doormat of our apartment the morning after the gala. She picked it up warily, holding it between two fingers like it might explode. "No return address," she said, handing it to me. "And no courier service." She dropped it herself. I didn't ask how she knew. We both did. Inside was a single handwritten letter, 2 pages, delicate cursive, perfumed faintly with something familiar. Vanessa's scent. Faint, floral, stubborn. I read it once, then again, and then I just sat there, letter in my lap, heart beating not with anger, but exhaustion. Emily sat across from me, silent, waiting. When I finally spoke, my voice felt like sandpaper. "She says she's leaving the city," I said. "A fresh start. A new job in Seattle." Emily raised an eyebrow, and I sighed. "She wants me to go with her." The silence between us stretched like taut wire. "She says she still loves me," I added, "that she didn't realize what we had until it was gone. She thinks if we started over, completely over, we might have a chance." Emily didn't move, didn't flinch, just stared at me, eyes unreadable. "She says she's willing to wait," I continued, "but that if I walk away this time, she won't chase me again." A pause. Then Emily asked the only question that mattered. "What are you going to do?" I folded the letter carefully, deliberately, and then, without ceremony, I tore it clean in half. Then again, until all that remained were narrow strips of regret lying in my palm, like confetti from the wrong kind of celebration. I stood, crossed to the kitchen, and dropped the shreds into the trash. "I'm done looking over my shoulder," I said. Emily walked up behind me, arms slipping around my waist, her cheek pressing into my back. "You sure?" she whispered. "I was sure the day you believed in me before I even believed in myself." She smiled against me. Later that evening, I sat at my desk alone, unable to shake the weight of what she'd written. Vanessa's words still echoed, not because I missed her, but because I recognized the tone. Desperation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's poetic, controlled, wrapped in ribbons of nostalgia and the false promise of change. But I'd lived that life already. I'd carried her expectations like anvils, sacrificed my own vision just to make her feel secure. I'd watched her roll her eyes at my dreams and smirk when I spoke of future plans. I'd built something beautiful from the ruins of what she mocked. And now, standing at the peak, I wasn't about to climb back into the valley. The next day, Carter came by the office, grinning like he already knew. Heard about the gala, he said, throwing a newspaper on my desk. Billionaire innovator shuts down ex-wife's on-stage plea in classy fashion. She's persistent, I said dryly. Carter chuckled. You'd be surprised how many ghosts come knocking once the mansion's built. He sat, leaned forward. You good? I'm better than good, I said. But I think it's time to focus on the future. Fully. Carter raised an eyebrow. Got something in mind. Emily and I have been talking. The foundation's growing fast, but I want to take it further. Not just donations. Incubators. Education programs. Startups that never get their shot because they look like I did 5 years ago. He nodded slowly. You're turning into a goddamn philanthropist. I smiled. Call it revenge through generosity. We clinked coffee mugs in place of whiskey. It felt cleaner that way. That night, Emily and I stood on the balcony of our apartment, wine glasses in hand, the city breathing softly beneath us. She turned to me. You never told me what else was in the letter. I hesitated, then answered. She said she dreams about the way things used to be, that she wakes up and forgets, just for a moment, that I'm not beside her, that she can still feel the weight of me in the sheets. Emily arched a brow, and she said she hasn't had sex in over a year, that no one else ever made her feel the way I did. Emily took a slow sip of wine. So she tried to seduce you through a goodbye letter. More like a farewell fantasy. Do you miss it? Not even a little, I said. It wasn't the sex. It was the performance. It always felt like I had to impress her just to get her attention. Emily moved closer, pressing into me. And now I don't have to perform. She smiled, then whispered, good. Because the only audience I care about is me. I kissed her slowly, deeply, like punctuation to the last sentence of a chapter I'd finally closed. Behind me, in the office, the shredded remains of Vanessa's letters still sat in the trash. Unreadable, unnecessary, and absolutely unrecoverable. The proposal wasn't a grand event. No orchestra, no beachfront fireworks, no hidden photographers waiting in the bushes. Just Emily and me on a worn blanket. The two of us stretched out beneath a sky thick with stars, miles outside the city where the only light pollution came from fireflies. She was laughing about something, probably Carter's newest attempt at hipster fashion, when I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and pulled out the ring. Her laugh cut off as she saw the box. Her eyes met mine. Wide. Silent. Don't say anything yet, I said, voice soft. Let me do this right. I sat up and opened the box. The ring wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. A simple platinum band. Oval-cut sapphire set with 2 tiny diamonds. Elegant. Timeless. Like her. I lost everything once, I said, and I rebuilt it. But what I found in you, I never want to lose that. You saw me when I had nothing, and you never looked away. So I don't want to just build companies or foundations or tech. I want to build everything with you. She didn't cry. Emily never cried over sweet words. She just nodded, then whispered, yes, and kissed me like the future had just been confirmed. We didn't tell anyone for a few days. It felt good, having something just ours again. Like a secret you didn't want to spoil by sharing too soon. Eventually, we made the announcement official during a dinner with the Salvis board. Carter toasted us with that crooked grin and muttered something about finally upgrading the company wife to the real one. Then, we got to work. The Salvis Foundation expanded in the months after our engagement. Not just in donations or partnerships, but in philosophy. We launched the Catalyst Project, an initiative aimed at finding people who were exactly like I'd once been, broke, burned out, but full of vision. Our mission was simple: invest in potential, not polish. The first city we launched in was Detroit, then Oakland, then Baltimore. Forgotten cities. Places filled with quiet brilliance overlooked by flashy headlines. We offered $10,000 startup grants. Mentorship, access to labs, co-working space, emotional support, hell, even temporary housing if someone was about to quit just because rent was due. The stories that came out of it were electric. Single mothers launching biodegradable packaging lines from their kitchens. Former gang members designing solar-powered community lighting systems. Teenagers building language apps to help their immigrant parents navigate healthcare. And through it all, Emily stood beside me. No longer just the woman who'd loved me when I was lost, but the partner helping others find their way too. We kept our lives simple. The apartment stayed the same. We could have bought a house in Pacific Heights, but Emily liked the view from our balcony too much. Instead of extravagance, we invested in people. At night, we still curled up on the couch, still argued over movie picks, still made love with that slow, steady intensity that didn't need urgency, just presence. One night, after reviewing the quarterly reports for the foundation, Emily set her tablet down and looked at me. "You know what I realized?" she said. "What's that?" "Everything we're building now, it has nothing to do with proving anyone wrong anymore." I nodded slowly. "It hasn't in a while. It's about proving the people we believe in right." I smiled. "Exactly. That's when I knew we'd made it. Not just the money, not the recognition, but the freedom, the ability to wake up every day and choose impact over image, to love someone deeply without needing to impress them, to give people chances not because they earned them, but because they needed them. We weren't chasing dreams anymore. We were giving them out." One Saturday afternoon, Emily pulled a dusty box from our closet while cleaning. Inside were old photos, us from our first trip together, receipts from ramen shops, a crumpled note I'd once written her. "Thanks for believing in a broke man with expensive ideas." She laughed as she held it up. "Still think that about yourself?" "No," I said, taking her hand. "Now I'm a rich man with bigger ideas." She smiled. "And a woman who still believes in you." We kept the note, framed it actually, hung it right above the desk in the Catalyst Project's main office. Because sometimes, the proof of who you are isn't in your resume or your net worth. Sometimes, it's in who stood by you when no one else would, and what you choose to build when you finally stop looking backward. Vanessa sat on the edge of her unmade bed, the remote trembling slightly in her hand. Her one-bedroom apartment was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that seeped into your skin and reminded you that no one was coming home. No one was waiting. No one was going to call. The TV cast a soft glow on her pale walls, illuminating the empty wine glass on the nightstand, the crumpled takeout bag near the window, the stack of unopened mail by the door. She didn't usually watch interviews, especially not ones like this. But the moment she saw his name trending on her phone, Ethan Hart plus Emily Graves, live on CNN Business Prime, her thumb tapped the link before she could stop herself. And now, there they were. Ethan sat in a tailored navy suit, calm and collected, with Emily at his side. Her hand rested casually on his knee, her engagement ring glinting under the studio lights. They looked effortless, natural, like they'd been doing this forever. The anchor leaned in, smiling. "So what's next for you two? You've built a billion-dollar company, launched a philanthropic foundation that's helped over 2,000 entrepreneurs in underprivileged communities. What's left?" Ethan smiled. That same soft smile she used to know. The one he'd give her in the morning, half asleep, brushing hair from her eyes. "Well," he said, glancing at Emily. "Marriage, for starters." Emily beamed. "And after that," he continued, "we're planning to expand the Catalyst Project internationally. We're working with teams in Kenya and Brazil already. But the goal is to scale opportunity. The kind of opportunity one never had when I was on the edge of losing everything." The anchor nodded. "You've both become symbols of resilience. It's a remarkable story." "It's not about us," Emily chimed in. "It's about what people can do when someone believes in them." Ethan didn't need saving. He just needed space to become who he already was. Vanessa's throat tightened. She remembered the last time she saw that version of him. The broke, tired dreamer sleeping on their couch with blueprints scattered on the floor, his knuckles raw from working side jobs just to keep the lights on. She'd rolled her eyes then, told him to stop wasting time, to grow up, to leave. And he did. The anchor leaned back. "One final question. What do you say to the people who doubted you, who gave up on you?" Ethan paused for a moment, then said with a quiet grace, "I don't think about them anymore." Emily's fingers laced with his. The camera cut to commercial. Vanessa stared at the frozen image on her screen. Ethan and Emily smiling at each other, comfortable, fulfilled, seen, and she felt a hollow ache open wide in her chest. Not rage, not even regret, just silence. She stood slowly, crossed the room, and opened her bedroom mirror. Inside was a small jewelry box. Dusty, forgotten. She popped the lid and pulled out the wedding band Ethan had slipped onto her finger 9 years ago. Simple, silver, still polished despite the years. She hadn't worn it since the night she told him to pack his bags. Now, she held it between her fingers like it might still hold magic, as if it might whisper something she could still fix. But it didn't. She set it back into the box. closed the lid. In the mirror, her reflection watched her with sharp clarity. You told him to disappear, she whispered to herself. Her eyes stayed locked on her own. And he did. She turned off the TV, the room swallowed by silence. She sat back down, pulled her knees to her chest, and finally let the tears come. Not the dramatic kind. Not sobs. Just a quiet, steady stream. A kind of mourning. Not for him, but for the version of herself that could have become someone else entirely. Someone better. But that version was gone. And Ethan had become everything she told him he never would. And he became it without her.